The threat to Israel as an ally of America was clear.
They were not clearly building a nuclear weapon.
Why on earth would you claim
lie. There has no evidence been produced that that was going to happen. They are risking a breakup of the country into warring parties. They are risking leaving behind the Islamic Republic in a more ferocious state of mind.
I get so pissed anytime I sit down and watch these MAGA bootlicking defenders try so hard to defend ideologies you can clearly tell are wrong. And today, oh today we've got a proper one. So, Julia Hartley-Brewer. You know her, I know her. She's gone and squared off against a former British diplomat over Iran. Over the military operations. Over what Pete Hegseth and his little Operation Epic Fury supposedly accomplished. And look, Hegseth. The man went from Fox News to Secretary of War. That's not a career trajectory, that's a fever dream. And now he's out here making claims about Iran that have massive implications under international law. This debate? It's going to get messy. And I need you here with me for this. If you love watching me unravel disasters like this, please click that subscribe button. And while you're at it, if you'd like to get a shout out in my next video, then like the video, share it with a friend, and tell me your name and where you're watching from.
Just want to ask you, first of all, what you make of what Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary for War, has been saying, that war is going to end in Iran when Americans say so, at the Trump administration's own choosing. He said that Iran has made a big mistake by targeting its neighbours. I think many of them were rather surprised to find missiles raining down on them, you know, UAE, Qatar and others. And he said that basically this was not going to be anything like what happened under Bush and Obama, where he said the endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush and Obama, not even close. Basically saying, look, this is about not letting Iran get a nuclear war. We're not going to build a nation. We're not going to be putting troops on the ground to, you know, help form that nation. We're basically going to be in and out. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the world can do without this kind of yee-haw exceptionalism, this vainglorious that has, under Trump, attacked more countries than any other previous president. I think we need sober analysis. We need good plans. We need legal bases for action. I support the British government position on all those matters. And I don't know when this war will end. We get such confusing signals. One moment Trump says, yes, it's going to end soon. And then Hegseth says there's no date, it's going to end when we want it to end. The Iranians say, well, hold on, you attacked us. So we have a say on when it ends. So I'm afraid the present situation is one of confusion. The salient fact is, though, that the United States and Israel have set about destroying Iran. And according to Trump, that objective has been achieved. He said, we have destroyed a country. So I think now is the time for all countries who are impacted by this illegal war to get together and demand de-escalation and a ceasefire.
Okay.
And Britain should be in the forefront of that effort.
It's interesting. I mean, you say this is an illegal war. We've had many on the Labour backbenchers and arguing this case. Why on earth do you think this is an illegal war when Iran has declared war on Israel, declared war against America, issued terrorist attacks in both countries, been funding terror and war aims against both countries for many years? How on earth could defensive actions to prevent that from happening be an illegal war?
Well, you're telling lies. Iran has not declared war on the United States. There was no
They've pledged the destruction. The Iranian regime has pledged the destruction of America.
There was no imminent threat against the United States. Now, I do not believe in pacifism. I do believe that war can be justified, but just the same way we declared that there was no legal basis for Putin's invasion of Ukraine, there is no legal basis.
That's not the same at all. Ukraine was not
Ukraine had not threatened
Russia. We know that Iran, the Iranian regime, and again, I think we should talk about the Iranian regime rather than Iran. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're very aware of your expertise, the difference between those things. They've made it very, very clear. Death to America is a bit of a clue, isn't it? Death to Israel. I mean, why should either America, I mean, they were clearly trying to build a nuclear weapon. Their threat to Israel as an ally of America was clear.
They were not clearly building a nuclear weapon.
Why on
That
earth
is
would you
a
claim
lie.
that?
There has no evidence been produced that that was going to happen. Trump's excuse that there would be a nuclear weapon in a fortnight is a lie.
They well, again, I agree with you in terms of how much can we trust what Donald Trump has to say on these things. Israel was certainly very much of the view that we know that it's well documented that Iran has been trying to develop nuclear weapons. They've been in long-term negotiations, long-term dispute with all the International Atomic Energy Authority over actual, being able to actually look at what they're actually doing. Because for some reason, despite being a major oil producer, they're of the view they desperately need to have the uranium developed to a level where far beyond nuclear power capacity and into nuclear weapon capacity. I don't think it's credible to say.
You are grossly distorting the evidence.
Right, so let's just sit with what we heard. Hegseth saying, the war ends when America says it ends. Not when diplomacy works, not when civilians stop dying, when America decides. And this no nation building line he's pushing, that's not strategy, that's an excuse. He's literally saying we're going to bomb a country into rubble and then just leave. No reconstruction, no accountability, just destruction and a plane ticket home. But here's what gets me. This is the same Pete Hegseth who reportedly pushed to pardon convicted war criminals during Trump's first term. The same guy who allegedly said the Geneva Conventions were outdated. This isn't someone who stumbled into aggressive military policy. This is his entire brand. And the Diplomat absolutely nailed it. Yeehaw exceptionalism. That's exactly what this is. The idea that America gets to decide when wars start and when they end, regardless of international law or who else gets caught in the crossfire. Remember that girls' school in Minab? The one reportedly hit by US airstrikes. That's what in and out looks like in practice. Real children, real casualties. And Hegseth's response was essentially, we're looking into it. The arrogance of standing there and saying, we destroyed a country, like it's an achievement and not a confession. Like that's something to be proud of rather than investigated. So when Julia starts pushing back on the Diplomat for calling this illegal, hold that thought. Because we need to talk about what legal even means when you've got people making up justifications on the fly.
You are out of your depth in considering the detail of this subject. Don't smirk at me like that.
I'm not smirking at you. I'm finding it absolutely extraordinary that anyone can even question that.
I shall tell you, the International Atomic Agency, in one of its most recent pronouncements, said that it had not detected any evidence of an active nuclear weapons program. Now, yes, they had enriched uranium to a dangerous level.
Why?
But their policy of not developing a nuclear weapon has been consistently stated. And the allegation, oh, come on.
No, but the Iranian Ayatollah stating they're not developing a nuclear weapon, but they've enriched uranium to a point which is way beyond the need for nuclear power. It is only needed for a weaponry. And you think, yep, they're absolutely telling the truth.
We were in the middle of an active and successful negotiation to deal with that problem. So yet again, the United States and Israel have made the security of the world worse by the way they behave. They have done great damage to the nuclear non-proliferation regime, which I believe even talk would endorse in order to reduce the number of countries who have nuclear weapons. But why do you think nations now are going to trust the United States' word? Why do you think they will be prepared simply to have conventional weaponry, when they face such odds all over the world against their adversaries, they will go the nuclear route, like Kim
we know
Jong-un
lots of countries
in North Korea.
Well, we know lots of countries have done that, don't we?
History, that will be in history, connected to the unjustified destruction of Iran on false pretexts.
Okay. Again, I couldn't disagree with you more on all of that, but you talk about the destruction of Iran. Is it not the case that actually these have been highly targeted, military strikes? They've not been targeting civilians, and we still don't know the truth about that girls' school next to an IRGC facility, who was responsible for that. But I doubt very much it would have been targeted deliberately by the US force, unknowingly by the US forces. We're not seeing the destruction of Iran. That's quite the opposite from what we're seeing from reports, that actually these are highly targeted military targets, leadership targets, rather than the actual, the people themselves, their energy facilities, their water desalination and the like.
You're just putting lipstick on the pig. The fact is, Trump says we are destroying Iran. Moreover, the gross environmental crime of attacking all those oil facilities around Tehran is but one example. They are attacking fire stations, police stations. 12 hospitals, according to the WHO, have been damaged. And yes, 168 children were killed, maybe by mistake. But they set out to provoke state failure in that country.
What's wrong with that, given the state, the regime that runs that state? A state that has threatened the rest of the world, threatened its neighbours, threatens the existence of Israel and every Jew in Israel, threatened America, has been behind terror attacks and threats in this country, has been funding this, basic chaos around the Middle East for decades now, that slaughters its own young people in the street, possibly 30, 40,000, even more than that, simply for asking, to have basic civil rights and women not to have to cover their hair. Why wouldn't it be the moral and good thing to try and oust that regime?
Well, they're going rather further than ousting that regime, are they not? They are trying to destroy the viability of the Iranian state.
And there it is. The nuclear boogeyman. Every single time. Look, I need you to catch what the diplomat just said, because Julia tried to blow right past it. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the actual body whose job it is to monitor this stuff, said they have not detected evidence of an active nuclear weapons program. That's not Iranian propaganda, that's the IAEA. Now yes, Iran enriched uranium to high levels. Nobody's disputing that. But here's what Julia conveniently forgets. We had a deal. The JCPOA was working. Iran was complying. International inspectors were on the ground verifying compliance. And then Trump ripped it up in 2018 because... reasons? Because Obama's name was on it? So Iran starts enriching again after America breaks the agreement. And now that's supposedly proof they were always lying? That's not how logic works. That's not how any of this works. The diplomat made a point that should terrify everyone. Why would any nation trust American agreements now? Why wouldn't countries pursue nuclear weapons when they see what happens to those who don't have them? Libya gave up its program and look what happened. Iran didn't have nuclear weapons and look what's happening right now. Julia's argument basically boils down to, well, they said bad things about Israel, so bombing them is justified. That's not international law. That's not how sovereignty works. That's just vibes-based foreign policy with cruise missiles. And notice how quickly she pivoted away when the diplomat brought up hospitals being damaged. 12 hospitals, according to the WHO. But sure, let's keep talking about uranium enrichment levels.
They are risking a breakup of the country into warring parties. They are risking leaving behind the Islamic Republic in a more ferocious state of mind. Now, I'm not justifying the 4 or 5 issues in which we have, and I personally conducted actions against in connection with Iranian policy. But responsible governments have to look at the range of possible consequences and to decide whether what they intend to do is too risky or acceptable. Now, the first test is international law. The second test is whether you're going to leave Iran in a worse position and the international community in a worse position, as the United States did in attacking Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. The United States' record in the Middle East is appalling, quite apart from arming and conniving at genocide in Gaza.
Oh, well, I'm going to end that now. Mr. Richard, we're out of time anyway. There was no genocide in Gaza. I'm genuinely, with all due respect to you, sir, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by my own government, although the government actually even admits, but a lot of the ministers, that a former British ambassador in Iran could claim that there was genocide in Gaza, when even the stats given by Hamas themselves do not even remotely suggest there was any attempt or certainly the achievement of genocide in Gaza. That's an absolute nonsense, with all due respect.
I have a right to reply to that remark.
Very quickly, if you could, Sir Richard.
Your opinion is contradicted by a great many international, including Jewish experts in genocide.
Yeah, there are lots of experts in genocide who say very different.
It's a question of the effect. The point is, Iran was contained. This war was unnecessary.
Okay. I disagree with that. I'd love you to come back. We've got a bit more time and we can talk a bit more longer about this. It's really interesting to do it. I say I wasn't smirking at it. I was just quite stunned by some of your opinions. But Sir Richard Holt, former British ambassador to...
The record in the Middle East is appalling. He said it. A former British ambassador just said those words out loud on live television. And Julia's response is to act embarrassed? To be stunned? No, no, no. You don't get to clutch your pearls when someone tells you the truth you've been dancing around for 20 minutes. Let me be absolutely clear about what just happened here. Sir Richard Dalton laid out the entire case. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. 3 countries where American military intervention left things demonstrably worse than before. That's not anti-American rhetoric, that's just history. Recent history that we all lived through. And then he mentions Gaza and Julia physically cannot handle it. She says there was no genocide, while the International Court of Justice has an active case examining exactly that question, while multiple human rights organisations have documented systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure, while we've all watched hospitals and schools reduced to rubble for over a year now. But sure, Julia, you're embarrassed that a diplomat has opinions backed by international legal experts, including Jewish scholars who specialise in genocide studies. The confidence is wild. Here's what really gets me about this entire exchange. The diplomat asked the fundamental question that nobody in the pro-war camp wants to answer. What happens after? What's the plan when the bombs stop falling? Because we know what Hegseth's position is. He said it himself. No nation building. We break it, we leave it. That's not a military strategy. That's just vandalism on a civilizational scale. 12 hospitals damaged according to the World Health Organization. We talked about this. But I want to sit with that number for a second. Hospitals. Where sick people go. Where injured people go. Where children receive treatment. And we're supposed to believe this is precision warfare? We're supposed to accept this is proportional response? The Geneva Conventions exist for a reason. They're not suggestions. They're not guidelines you can ignore when it's inconvenient. They represent the international community's collective decision after witnessing the horrors of World War II, that certain things are simply unacceptable regardless of who does them. Deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure is a war crime, full stop. It doesn't matter if you're American. It doesn't matter if you claim self-defense. The law is the law. And what kills me, what absolutely kills me, is watching people like Julia invoke moral authority while defending actions that would be universally condemned if any other country did them. Imagine if Iran bombed 12 American hospitals. Imagine the coverage. Imagine the outrage. But when America does it, suddenly we need to consider context and nuance. And well, actually, they were probably hiding weapons there. The double standard is so baked in that people don't even see it anymore. Sir Richard made another point that deserves attention. This risks leaving Iran in a more ferocious state of mind, creating more extremism, not less. strengthening hardliners, not moderates. We've seen this pattern before. We've watched it play out repeatedly. And yet here we are, doing the exact same thing, expecting different results. Look, I'm just a guy sitting here watching British television. But even I can see what this is. This isn't about security. This isn't about protecting anyone. This is about demonstrating power because you can. Because there's no one to stop you. And Julia sitting there smirking. Sorry, not smirking, she was just stunned. While a veteran diplomat explains basic consequences of reckless military action. That tells you everything about where we are right now. Subscribe to the channel and drop your name and where you're watching from, so I can give you a shout out in the next video. If you want to support what we do here, hit that join button below to become a channel member. And if you think this was frustrating, you need to see what happened when Lewis Goodall went head-to-head with a Conservative MP about Trump's war policies. The absolute demolition job he did on their talking points. Honestly, it's chef's kiss. I'll link that one right here.